So, Republican Congressman Russell Fry, who built his whole career by going after someone for simply doing their job and following the law, just spent his time demanding to know why that person cannot remember filling out some basic paperwork from more than 2 years ago. At the very same time, he argued that the person never had the legal right to do the job in the first place. If that were true, then the paperwork he is so worried about would not matter at all. So, what happened here? On January 22nd, former Special Counsel Jack Smith spoke before the House Judiciary Committee. This is the same group Republicans are using to go after anyone who dared to investigate Donald Trump. Russell Fry, who got his job mainly because Trump supported him after the last congressman voted to impeach Trump, decided this was his big chance to reveal what he called a shocking truth: that Jack Smith cannot remember a small ceremonial detail from November 2022. As usual, let's watch another Republican make a fool of himself, and I will gladly give you my take later.
South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when was the initial indictment issued on President Trump? August 1st, 2023, does that sound about right?
That's in the election case. That's correct.
Correct. And on that election case, after that, you asked for a trial date when?
I don't recall as I sit here right now.
January 2024, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, so after the indictment, you in August, you asked for a January trial date. That's like 5 months? 5 months? How much evidence did you have? Millions of pages?
As I sit here right now, I don't recall the exact
I think in your
size.
testimony, they talked about a number, 13 million pages. Is that a ballpark accurate number?
I think that was the question asked of me, and as I sit here, I don't have an accurate number for that.
So let's just assume that that's true, right? Because you had a bunch of stuff. You had $50 million that you blew through the Treasury on a trial that went nowhere. How many pages per day is that? 100,000? That sound about right? What if we break that down per hour? It's 4,166 per minute is 70 pages. You like to read, sir? You like to read?
I do.
Do you read 70 pages a minute?
I do not.
I mean, that would be remarkable. So how do you prepare for a trial in 5 months if you're asking the defense counsel to read 70 pages a minute? How do you do that and prepare a defense and look at all the witness testimony and video evidence that you supposedly had? How do you do that? You know what's shocking to me, and I think that one of the most egregious aspects of this case, Mr. Smith, is that if you get a traffic ticket in Washington, D.C., you're not going to trial in 5 months. But you want the president, the former president of the United States, to have a trial date with 13 million pages of documents within 5 months. I think that's ridiculous. And I think that speaks exactly to what we talk about when we examine not only your record, but the things in this case that are deeply troubling. That this was not the pursuit of facts and law and letting the judge and the jury decide. That this was an exercise in it was a political hit job, timed perfectly against the President of the United States. Sir, in the Florida case, in the records case, what happened ultimately in that case?
What happened ultimately in the case?
Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago records case.
I'm going to answer because I don't think this is covered by Judge Cannon's order. We moved to dismiss that case pursuant to Justice Department policy.
No, the records case in Florida.
Against Donald Trump.
The records case in Mar-a-Lago, were you ruled to be, what was the ruling in that?
That was Judge Cannon's ruling, and she ruled my appointment unlawful, and we sought to appeal that, and that appeal was pending at the time that we dismissed the cases.
So from the very beginning, were you ever confirmed by the United States Senate?
I have never been confirmed by the United States Senate. I will say that the history supporting my appointment is over 100 years old. Other special counsels.
But isn't there a statute on the appointment? I mean, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. So I think that's kind of interesting. But I think the point is, from the very beginning, on the documents case and others, you weren't even lawfully appointed, and that's why Judge Cannon ruled the way that she did. And from the beginning, we talk about that you followed Department of Justice policy, you followed the facts, you followed the law, you followed the Constitution. That's what you have said all throughout this day, parroted by the Democrats, that you have done nothing wrong. But from the very beginning, you weren't even lawfully, and you can't even recall who swore you in. So as we sit here today, based on your testimony in the transcribed interview, can you tell us who swore you in as special prosecutor?
As I said, I know I took the oath of office. I don't recall who swore me in. What I can share with you.
I don't know, sir. Call me naive, but that's a milestone career move for you that you get to do this, and you don't remember the circumstances. I just find that a little bit odd. But here's the thing, and I'm going to wrap up quick. You're unconstitutionally appointed. You breached the 60-day rule, releasing this very partisan attack against the president right before the election. You tampered with evidence in the Mar-a-Lago case that you admitted to in court filings. You subpoenaed members of Congress and their phone records in violation of the Constitution, of current statutes. You didn't even let the court know that these were members of Congress. How are we to assume otherwise that this wasn't political? Because it absolutely was, sir. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Let me add some information that Fry left out. Jack Smith was named special counsel on November 18, 2022, by Attorney General Merrick Garland. This happened 3 days after Trump announced he was running for president again. Smith asked for a trial date of January 2nd, 2024. That was 5 months after the August 2023 charges, and there were about 13 million pages of evidence shared with the defense. Here is what Fry did not mention. Under Justice Department rules, prosecutors are supposed to move cases forward quickly because the public has the right to a speedy trial, not just the person being charged. The Supreme Court has backed this idea. Smith was not trying to mess with the election. He was trying to finish the case before Trump could win the election and use that to avoid being prosecuted, which is exactly what ended up happening. Now, let's talk about this claim that Smith's appointment was illegal. Judge Aileen Cannon, who was appointed by Trump, ruled in July 2024 that Smith's appointment broke the Constitution, but many legal experts quickly said this view was extreme and far outside the norm. Experts from the University of Pennsylvania's Center for Ethics and the Rule of Law called the decision deeply wrong and pointed out that special counsels have been appointed this way for a very long time. Even Justice Clarence Thomas mentioned this idea in a separate opinion, but none of the other justices agreed with him. And here is the problem with that argument. If Smith's appointment were illegal, then the appointments of Robert Mueller, John Durham, and every other special counsel for the last 100 years would also be illegal. Republicans never complained about those. Now to Fry's so-called big moment. Smith cannot remember who gave him his oath of office. Federal law does not say any specific person has to give that oath. Lots of different officials can do it. It is just routine paperwork. And here is the irony Fry missed. If Smith's job were truly illegal, then who gave the oath would not matter at all, because the whole thing would be invalid anyway. Fry is trying to argue both that the oath is very important and that the job never legally existed. Those two ideas do not fit together. The plan here is obvious. Republicans want to make investigating Trump look like a crime. Smith said he expects the Trump administration might try to charge him with crimes. During the hearing, Trump posted online calling Smith a deranged animal who should not be allowed to practice law. The goal is not to prove real wrongdoing. The goal is to create confusion so people think something shady must have happened. They want you to hear that he cannot remember who gave the oath and think he must be hiding something, instead of realizing it is normal not to remember a small detail from a simple ceremony years ago. Here is the plain way to explain this to others. Jack Smith was appointed using long-standing Justice Department rules. He asked for a quick trial because the law says the public deserves one. There was a lot of evidence, but Trump's lawyers had access to it and already knew much of it. They suggested a trial date in April 2026, which would have been after the election. And the claim that his appointment was illegal has been rejected by most legal experts and goes against decades of past cases, including ones that helped Republicans. So why does this matter? For you personally, it means we are watching one of our two major political parties try to set a new rule that investigating a president for crimes is itself a crime. According to NPR, former prosecutor Andrew Weissman said Republicans focused on small technical issues instead of challenging any of the actual facts about Trump's actions. They could not deny that Trump tried to overturn the election. They could not deny the classified documents case. So instead, they attacked the prosecutor. It is like getting angry at the police officer who gave you a speeding ticket instead of just slowing down. Step back and look at the bigger picture. Republicans seem willing to tear down long-standing rules and traditions if it helps Trump. Judge Cannon's ruling goes against more than 100 years of history. If that idea stands, future presidents could simply call any investigation illegal and shut it down. That is something authoritarian governments do. Other countries are watching and learning that you do not have to win the legal fight anymore. You just have to win elections, put loyal people in power, and then use them to say no one can hold you responsible. And for what? Because Trump cannot accept losing an election? Because admitting he broke the law might hurt him politically? According to Smith's final report, released in January 2025, there was enough evidence to convict Trump at trial. But Trump won the election, and Justice Department policy says you cannot prosecute a sitting president, so the cases were dropped. Trump walked away free, and now he and his allies are trying to ruin the career of the prosecutor who followed the evidence. Remember when Republicans called themselves the Law and Order Party? That was before the man they support tried to overturn the government because he lost. Andrew Weissman also pointed out something important. Republicans did not challenge the main facts about Trump trying to block the peaceful transfer of power or keeping classified documents at his home. Instead, they complained about phone records, paperwork, and small technical details. That is what you do when the facts are not on your side. Here is where things stand. The House Judiciary Committee held this hearing as part of Chairman Jim Jordan's investigation into what they call weaponization of the Justice Department. Jack Smith said he made his decisions without caring about Trump's politics or campaign. He defended the evidence, the timeline, and his team's work. And he said he would not be scared by threats. Let's be clear about what this is not about. It is not about whether Smith followed the rules. He did. It is not about whether his appointment was legal. History and most experts say it was. And it is not about whether he remembers a small ceremony from years ago. That simply does not matter. This is about whether we will accept the idea that charging powerful people with crimes is itself a crime. This is about whether one party can tear down accountability because their leader does not want to face consequences. And this is about whether politicians like Russell Fry, who owe their careers to loyalty to Trump, get to lecture others about the Constitution without anyone pointing out the hypocrisy. The darker truth is that they are not even hiding it. Fry did not need Smith to remember anything. He just needed a short video clip for friendly news shows. The show is the punishment. Make investigators defend themselves. Make them spend money on lawyers. Make them worry about their safety. Send a message to everyone else. Investigate us, and this will happen to you. If you care about clear facts, real timelines, and accountability instead of political theater, stay tuned for what comes next. Subscribe to support independent, research-based coverage that cuts through the noise and shows what actually happened. Like, follow, and share so more people can see the truth.